Let's see if we can have a quorum. So.
Okay. My name is Scott Finley. I'm the chair, and I will be calling to order the meeting. We have a quorum.
I need to ask if we need to take roll call.
Yes. Let's take a roll call.
Okay. So we have Scott Finley.
Here.
Present.
Present.
Aaron Jennings
Present.
and Susan Van Ness.
Present.
Teresa Aquila, absent. Roger Edwards, absent. Chair, we do have a quorum.
Awesome. And now we will be moving on to the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we're moving on to approval of the minutes for the meeting of July 14th, 2025. One of the things that was an issue that we ran into is when I was designated as chair, but we never actually officially redesignated you as vice chair. This was brought to my attention. And so during this item, we now do a vote to initiate you as vice chair.
Go ahead and make a motion.
I would like to make a motion to vote Aaron as the vice chair of the North Valley staff.
I would second that.
I vote for someone else, just kidding.
Okay. Motion so moved. And is the minutes approved?
And does anybody have any issues with the minutes?
I don't.
Susan?
Just one thing that I asked, was that Gene Herman be on the fire board, but we will get to that next Tuesday on the 19th. That's what I wasn't on the minutes, but not a big deal.
Okay. I vote to make a motion to approve the minutes.
I second.
All right, we will now be moving on to general public comment, and we have a public comment by Tammy Holtzill. Uh-oh.
Hi, doing all the stuff that I heard. Valley. Where do you want me over there? Okay.
That way the people on that can see you.
I
can hear you.
I actually can see from that, but no, we don't need a mic.
Tammy Holston for the record, live in the Valley. I have two issues that I'd like to bring up. Number one was, a couple weeks ago, we had a resident on Pepper that decided to have a open flame fire. There was a call brought into the fire department. They did come out. They put the fire out. That resident decided to have that fire again. When that call was placed again to the non-emergency line, that call was sent to the fire department again, and that was told that that person was allowed to have an open flame fire. And that the fire department did not come back out, and that person had a fire all night long. I don't appreciate that.
Wait, who's that? If you give me the information, I can.
Saturday, like, what was that, Jeannie? I can't remember. I told you the following day. It was 2 weeks ago. We have already been dropped by Farmers Insurance or State Farm. What is our insurance? What was our insurance? Farmers, because of fire hazard. And then to have an issue like this is not appreciated whatsoever. And I don't like the fact that we're being dismissed when we're supposed to not have fires, and we're being law-abiding citizens and not burning our slash when we're trying to keep our trees trimmed and our plants nice and pretty and everything. And we're taking it to the dump and then somebody's having, in the middle of the night, this big, huge glowing fire that I can see 2 streets away. I live on Tupelo, and I can see a fire on cover. It's not cool. The other thing I don't appreciate is the fact that the last meeting that I was at, we talked to the sheriff department about the side-by-sides or ATVs that are racing up and down Lemon Drive and Military Road, and they have their blue and red lights flashing and their loud music all night long and during busy times. And we've asked for patrol, and we tell you it's Friday and Saturday nights, and we're not getting the service. We're not seeing the sheriff's department and the police departments out doing what they're supposed to be doing for our citizens. And I am making my complaint again about it. It's time for it to happen.
Good luck with that.
Thank you. Alright, so we will be moving on to item number 5, public safety updates.
Good evening, James Solero, Truckee Mills Fire Battalion Chief. For last month of July, we're staying consistent with 210 calls in the North Valleys. As you probably noticed, we've had an uptick in fires in the last month. A lot of that, we want to remind everybody, is that we are starting to dry out. Things are starting to be more receptive to fires. So we're trying to push the message of making sure that your chains on your trailers are nice and pulled up. They aren't dragging along on the ground. That when you are off-road, that you have spark arresters on your UTVs, ATVs. Carry a gallon of water. The water is not for putting the fire out, it's for you to keep you hydrated. Make sure you carry a shovel with you to try to help stop it if you can. The other thing we're talking about this month, as everybody knows, school started today. We had 2 vehicle accidents in the district that involved school buses. So please be aware of the school buses, the children in the crosswalks, et cetera. And then the last thing I've got is, I forgot about it, what it was. Tammy, I'd like to talk to you afterwards just so we can get the dates on that correct. Anybody, any questions?
So I got one about you.
Yes.
State your name.
Up at the top.
State your name, please.
Real simple, anyways, my question is, the school district, there's a school bus thing off of North Virginia. I've had a call on some of the drivers. I used to drive semi-truck, hey, around here, all this kind of stuff. All that being said, nobody polices the school bus. I called in on it, who will take the number down and all that kind of stuff, and that's what stops that. So maybe in your position, make sure if there is an accident, make sure, because some of the school bus drivers, I know for a fact, over at Gallagher Green at one point, that school bus yard there was a different kind of folks running them, being really polite, not naming races and all that kind of thing. But just to say that a lot of times the school buses are speeding. I see them on Ramsey. I've seen him take a corner way too fast, call it in. That's all I want to have.
Gene Shower,
Lemon Valley.
So what Tammy is talking about, I heard that if you have a legal fire pit that's a certain dimension, height, and stuff, you're allowed to have a fire pit. Is there a restriction on the time of year on those?
Yes, the fire chief put in 2 fire restrictions this year.
Okay,
So fires are not allowed, open flame fires are not allowed currently.
okay.
That includes, if I remember correctly, that includes charcoals, fires, et cetera.
Does that include barbecues?
If it's charcoal, yes, not natural gas.
Okay.
not gas barbecues.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's the first time you guys see my face over here. My name is Lieutenant Nick Tone. I've been in the sheriff's office for 13 years, and the cabs are now my responsibility. So you'll be seeing me a little bit more often at these meetings. You'll be able to attend all of them. If not, make sure to send somebody to talk to you guys and hear whatever you guys have to say. A couple of questions I wanted to, questions. A couple of data that I have are Q2 Q2 report card. We have all our data just released, specifically to North Valleys. Wanted to give you guys some updates on calls for service. Our 3-year average for this area specifically, which are our various beats for North Valleys, Lemon, parts of Stead, and Golden Valley, and Red Rock, is 2,491 calls for service. That isn't necessarily just 911 calls. That is 911 calls and self-initiated activity from our deputies as well. That number is up this year from 2,491 to 2,896. So we did have an appreciable increase in proactivity by our deputies, which the majority of those calls for service are. We actually had a decrease in 911 calls of about 70, and we had an increase of over 300 self-initiated traffic stops, subject stops, and whatever the deputies see when they're out driving around and things that they believe needs to be addressed. It's been a little bit since I've been at this one. So I had a 4th of July update for those that are interested. Our dispatch center typically takes about 1,400 to 1,500 calls for service on July 4th. This year, they did over 2,000 calls, 911 calls in one evening. So they did a great job. It was very, very busy that night, but no out of control brush fires, thanks to our friends over at TMF. And all in all, it turned out to be a pretty decent night for such a high call volume. And of course, some of the larger news items we have in the news, we had the arrest of Andrea Loving. We also, for Nicholas Loving, he was also charged with open murder in the death of Izzy. But those are the major news stories we've had in the last couple of weeks. I don't believe there were any others, but those were certainly the highlights. Okay, any questions for me? Sir.
Dean Shower, Lemon Valley. So the side-by-sides, I was told that it's not legal to have the light bars and all the fog lights and all that stuff on while you're on the roadways. But like Tammy was saying, a lot of these guys with the razors have the lit up red and blue whips, and they've got all their light bars on, and they're blinding traffic even during the day.
Sure. So, like with anything else, case by case basis, super bright light bars, certainly legal, as they are on your pickup trucks, your Jeeps and everything else. Same exact concept applies. The whips and the other items that they have, especially if they're red and blue, you can have those as well. However, some of them will be off the highway. If they're off the highway, even though you can see them from the highway, legal. But if they're actually riding on the highway, which as per NRS, they are allowed on the highway as long as the speed limit is 35 miles per hour or less. And if they are within, I believe, I don't want to misquote it, but I believe it's within 5 miles of a trailhead. And they're supposed to be heading to the trailhead or back. That is what the NRS states. So they are allowed on the roadway, but yes, at night, if they have those super bright lights on, they have the whips up on top with various colors. What I would ask is our north units, because this is part of our north beat. We have everything split, more for your information than anything else. We have incline units that are stuck there. We have units in Gerlach, and then the valley we split it. North Valley is obviously part of north. We have on any typical night, we'd like to have 13 deputies on, but with vacations and everything else, we typically have about 9 or 10 plus a swing shift. Depending on where the calls for service are prioritized during the day, if you guys see that, if you can get us some kind of identifying feature on that, understanding that you just got blinded by the lights, that might be difficult. Or just leave it side by side. If you can put that call for service in, we can put it on the board. And if there's a unit nearby, they can head to wherever you see that, and we can try to get them before they get home. In an ideal world, be able to station people there all night long, but the reality is with the amount of calls for service we have to prioritize life, safety, and everything else above traffic nuisance, property crimes, and things of that nature. So depending on the night, I can certainly stick deputies out there. It's not a problem, but just with the understanding that if anything that has to do with life preservation or anything of a higher priority, they must be pulled from that first. And that's how a typical shift will run. Yes, ma'am.
Tammy Holt, still Lemon Valley. Friday, Saturday, from Virginia Street, Lemon Drive, coming out this way from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. You will find at least 6 to 8 of those side-by-sides coming from Virginia Street on Lemon Drive, coming out this way. They live up on Virginia Street, up in that area back up there, and they're coming out here to meet up with their friends. And they are driving those side-by-sides that are not licensed for the road, not permitted for the road, not insured for the road, on the road.
Now, the only part of that I would just put out, reckless driving is never acceptable, no matter what you're driving. They don't have to be licensed. They don't have to have a license plate. That is the way the NRS is currently written. So you go park out your driveway, like say you live on Oregon.
Excuse me.
Mhm.
I used to work for DMV. No vehicle is allowed on that street unless it's licensed for the street.
Which street specifically? What's the speed limit on that street?
Lemon Drive.
45. And that's what I was just going to ask. If it's above a 35 mile per hour street, then you're absolutely correct. If it's a 35 mile per hour street or below, NRS does allow them to be on that street. So for 45 miles per hour, that is absolutely correct. They cannot be on that street. But if it's one of the side streets, they can. And that's just the way the statute is currently written. Not that a statute can't be changed, but we have to operate under the way the statute is written today.
I just want to speak up. I know people have questions, but I'm trying to limit the meetings to one question per person. So.
Well, and just on that note, just to wrap up that, if I can give you my business card afterwards, just so I can get it down correctly, anything that needs calls for service or assets, let me give you my email address. I can actually have it in writing. And that way I can pass it on to appropriate people because I don't work Friday nights, but I can send it to the people who do.
But before anybody, I'll hit this. They're all simple. If you hire Ramsey Way, Ramsey Way is now considered like Lemon Drive. The traffic on that street in particular, because all the pools going to Walmart and all that stuff happening instead. All the major traffic on that, since we have a flood, small lake, have picked up. Now everybody thinks that's the route to go. It is posted 25 miles an hour. There is maybe 1 out of 10 vehicles, period, that have brought out of that street racing. I've had fools doing Sue and I, people, because she just above me in the cul-de-sac on Cunningham. She had first, that person up there spinning brodies and stuff. Units come out, you can never find where they went. That kind of stuff is becoming more than normal. Yeah. I know you're talking about not having units to do all that kind of thing, but Friday and Saturday night, I can guarantee you from just before dusk, all the way through early morning hours. Them pieces of crap, do not give a damn. They run up and down there, have me so sideways, I take my right block, I put my right away, right, because that's not the right action.
So one thing I would recommend, and this is how we handle a similar situation in Incline. If you put in to washoesheriff.com, paper trails are beneficial. And the reason that is, if you can put into writing, I can give that directly to a motors sergeant. Motors is our traffic division. And then what I can do is we can adjust schedules and actually saturate that area during those times. And the part that a lot of people don't realize is when we get those calls for service, that also makes a paper trail for traffic engineers.
Gotcha.
So traffic engineer, we're able to take these problem areas, we're able to show with data, here's the complaints, here's the citations written, and here's what's going on here. And they can use that data to make adjustments, be it speed bumps, little chicane things, roundabouts, whatever the solution is. But having that paper trail gives us data to be able to pass on to them and come up with hopefully a more permanent solution. So if that's something you're able to do, anytime you can put that on through our website, it does get disseminated to the right people and we can come up with a more permanent solution.
Yeah, and I tried, man, I called non-emergency because I know that it's recorded to make sure I'm stating it right. And it got out of line last year one time. I had guys on quads doing stupid stuff. I went out, I have no problem going out on the street with a shovel in my hand, embrace it. I mean, it's that crazy. And I went out to my business owner and just motioned, hey man, come over here and have a conversation, trying to be civil. He chose to let me burn, freak out, do all that. Went back on my property, all copacetic. Next thing I know, he's in my driveway, sitting really just throwing gravel.
Yeah.
It just becomes too much past a certain point. And I told the dispatcher person I talked to in non-emergency, says the next call you're gonna get is gonna be a 911 call. Somebody's gonna get freaking hurt. It ain't gonna be me. Because I know you guys have done it. I've taught your officers over another situation last year. And he said, man, it's crazy down in Sun Valley. We think we got it screwed up here. Sun Valley, it's just nonstop.
Yeah, that is a factual statement.
Thanks, man.
Team Chair, Lemon Valley, just to clarify something on the side-by-sides, you can get insurance on them. I have full coverage insurance on mine.
Yes.
I have turn signals, I have windshield wipers.
Yeah.
I have pretty much everything a car has except doors.
Yeah. No, you absolutely can get that.
And you do pay for an off-road registration every year.
Yeah.
Those are required in Nevada, in most states anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sir?
I got one question for you.
Do you have any breakdown of software
service calls?
Sorry, let me get back to that page. This is the entire county right here. So they changed a couple of things. I believe this is actually available online. So if you've taken a look at it already. Couple things we changed. Burglary is not broken down into what type of burglary anymore. There's a goal crime for the sheriff for reductions. They've all been combined. Burglaries in North Valleys is down from 8 for a 3-year average for a Q2 down to 5. We are at all offenses are down 56 to 43. Our increases from 0 to 1 is embezzlement. And we also had another increase of assaults went from 42 to 44. But I would also say the reason for that is because domestic violence used to be separated. Assault has been encompassed into an entire category now. So that's why that number increased a little bit as well, from 42 to 44. Notable decreases, like I said, the burglaries, DOP, vandalism is down 30 to 22. DUIs are down from 15 to 13, and drug offenses are down from 15 to 13 as well. Oh, fraud. Fraud was very prolific out here. 29 for Q2, and we're down to 19. And a lot of the fraud, unfortunately, is the scams that you're seeing. People call, they try to get money, they get a lot of elderly folks, and they end up convincing them to transfer Bitcoin to wallets, things of that nature. That is a very, very prolific crime right now. And unfortunately, we are working on a lot of public service announcements for it. You've seen our Facebook page, the Bitcoin machines. We are putting flyers out. The perpetrator is typically from another country. So that's something we're trying to fix with some education. And so far we've been successful, but unfortunately it's still happening. Thank you. Certainly.
Caitlin Finley from Lemon Valley. I want to talk about one other area I'm concerned about while driving in the morning. It's when you get past Buck on Lemon Valley, there's a lot of people trying to pass on the right and cut in and almost hit you.
So
It's
on,
really terrible.
on Buck.
On
are
Lemon
we
Valley Drive?
Heading up to like Northridge, or on Lemon, like heading up to Walmart?
On Lemon Valley, heading to the freeway, where it goes down, where you can go to the right
Yes.
and go ahead and head down towards Stead, or the other 2 lanes that are going onto the freeway. People are trying to pass on the right and swing in and cut you off, and I can't tell you how many times I've almost been hit there. It's really dangerous anymore.
And a good chunk of that road does belong to Reno PD, but that doesn't mean I can't reach out to my cohorts. and let them know it's an area of concern.
It's very dangerous.
I can do that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, because I mean, I was almost hit this morning. I can't tell you how many times in a week I've almost hit there because people are trying to go pass on the right and cut in so they can get in the freeway headed towards Reno.
The construction certainly isn't helping,
Well, this part isn't under construction. They're just
or the diverting people.
impatient.
Yeah.
Yeah, very impatient.
I'm gonna take one more question for the gentleman in the back by the window.
Mark Sutton, Cedar. I was just curious about the numbers you mentioned earlier. The typical year was like 2,100-ish calls,
Yeah, so.
and that ticked up to 28. Was there like any kind of a graph, or was it a gradual kind of an increase?
No, so the way we break it down is dispatch calls for service, which is going to be a 911 call or a non-emergency call, something where a citizen called into the dispatch center and it elicited a call for service up on our board for us to respond to. The other is self-initiated activity, which is a deputy seeing something, doing a traffic stop, stopping somebody walking down the road, or whatever variety of things that the deputy would see that needs to be addressed. The now actual 911 calls actually decreased from an average of 768 to 697. But with our staffing improvement, which improvement meaning a couple more guys, nothing substantial. But with our increased staffing, our self-initiated activity increased from 834 to 1,158. So a lot of it is more proactive work as opposed to sitting around and waiting for something to happen, trying to get ahead of it and have doing some proactivity, stopping those cars that need to be stopped. Our DUIs as a valley, we have done a lot of DUI saturation. We have 2 new units called A-Ride, which is an acronym for the type of drug and alcohol detection we use. And they have been responsible for a significant number of DUIs. That unit alone got 17 last month, 14 the month before. And our total DUIs for July, I may be off in one or the other direction, but I believe it was 42. So we're hitting DUIs hard. Fatalities, traffic crashes and everything else that comes with that.
And thank you for your answer. My question, I was wondering if there was any kind of a trend with the explosion of apartments and such.
More people, more problems. And that's usually the way it goes. That's going to usually get more calls for service, especially traffic related. Those do count as calls for service as well. So more people, they're building out the infrastructure. While not applicable to North Valleys, they just released the roadmap for what they're doing on Pyramid. And like I don't know how many years that project is going to be, but 6 or 7 years. If I could pull out my magic wand and just make that done, it's going to be great when it's done, but construction takes a while here, unfortunately.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
And would you be okay with one very last question from Susan?
Susan, just for the record, I was working on the app on Sheriff's app and on the desktop app. Does it have the capability to upload a video?
So with the app itself, I'd have to look to see if you can do a video. I believe you can upload documents and pictures.
Okay.
Now, if there is a case, what we can do, the group that we use, same company that makes our body cameras through Axon, we have a thing called evidence.com. And if their case is drawn for whatever it is, even if it's an online case, a deputy can send you a link. And then you can upload, if it's on your phone, you can just go to your camera roll, click pictures, videos, whatever you want, click go, and it downloads it to the
But it
case file.
isn't the initial complaint that you make.
With the initial complaint, I'd have to check on video. I have not looked in a long time because I haven't had reason to, but I know documents and pictures are available, but I'd have to check on video. But that is a method, was having a deputy send you that link.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, certainly.
So We'll be moving on to item number 6, and that will be given by Zach Young with the Washoe County Assistant, well, he's the Washoe County Assistant District Attorney.
Good evening. My name is Zach. I've supervised our criminal division. I've been a career prosecutor for going on 20 years. That's my passion to go to law school and get into law is to prosecute, and not civil, not defense. So Sally reached out a little while ago asking if I would come. I watched the video from, I think it was May, from your meeting where there was a sergeant with the sheriff's office that talked about noise complaints and kind of phrasing that noise complaint term. And Sally asked if I would come and discuss what happens, after the fact. As everyone here can appreciate, you file a noise complaint, there might be a citation, and that's really kind of the start of that kind of criminal justice process. So I'll address a couple of things, kind of go through what a process looks like. I do have a recent case example to share with you, and then of course sit around for whatever questions you guys may have. So specifically speaking, there is not a noise complaint statute. It's under NRS, it's a breach of peace. But what that says, it's malicious and willful disturbing the peace or quiet of neighborhood or person, family by loud or unusual noises to malicious conduct. So that's really when it is a noise complaint, it gets lodged under there. So we use noise complaint very loosely. I certainly understand, what the thrust of that complaint is, but under NRS, it's breach of peace, disturbing the peace for the Washoe County Code. Now, what's interesting is there's virtually no case law on this statute whatsoever. There's one unpublished opinion that addresses the malice and willful element of it. And there is a mens rea that goes with it. So there are some statutes that are strict liability. If you commit a certain act, you are guilty of the crime. There is a malice and willful element to breach of peace or disturbing the peace, or again, noise complaint that we usually lose. Malice, just so you know, kind of the element that we have to prove in that regard. Evil intent, wish or design to vex, annoy, or injure, and then willfulness is a purpose behind the act. So that'll come to play a little bit when we're talking about what do we do with these noise complaints. There was a question, I watched the May video, and there was a question about, well, why does the citizen who makes the complaint have to, do anything after that once the sheriff deputy or other law enforcement makes a citation? That'll come into play when I address that. So briefly speaking, it all starts with law enforcement, right? So some people understand this, some people don't. So I like to start off kind of discussions talking about it. There is a division in responsibility between law enforcement and prosecution's office. So we certainly work hand in hand, we work together in the criminal justice system in a broad scope, but the sheriff's office and other police agencies are responsible for investigating criminal activity, and the DA's office and other prosecution authorities are responsible for prosecuting. So our office is primary prosecution authority for Washoe County. We don't and are not tasked with investigating crime. That's going to be for the sheriff's office or Reno police or otherwise. So when there is and again, I'll use noise complaint loosely, a noise complaint, you or whoever that is will contact the sheriff's office or otherwise. They will conduct an investigation, and if appropriate, either arrest or typically for these types of offenses, issue a citation. Anyone who's done that before knows that they'll come back to you and you'll call it a citizen citation. You're signing that citation because there is law that does not allow for law enforcement, with very rare exception, to arrest or cite unless the crime is committed in their presence. Right? That's not an unusual law. That's pretty common across all the states. So that is the starting point. So now what happens, it is a criminal offense. So breach of peace, disturbing the peace, it is a criminal offense. So with that, all the constitutional rights that anybody charged with an offense has, primarily confrontation, meaning that they get to question the witnesses against them in court if they choose not to plead guilty, hearsay. So,
Nick cannot get up in court to say, well, I was told by the citizen X, Y, or Z. It's the citizen that has to get up and say these things. So what will happen is when an individual is cited, in a general sense, that case goes to court. The first step when the citation is made is the sheriff's, I'll use sheriff's department, but the police agency will issue a citation to the individual and it'll list a court date. They'll say you have to go to court on September 5th, 2025 at 9:30. If that individual goes to court and pleads guilty to that charge of offense, they get their, whatever the punishment is, typically a fine at that level, something like that. And that's the case. Now it is a criminal offense, so it goes on their record. The arrest is on their record, the citation is on their record. And we have that for, when I say enhancement, it's not enhanceable in terms of greater offenses, but we know that punishment down the road, it's their second offense, third offense, fifth offense, something like that. Typically, what we see with these citations is they do not plead guilty when they get into court. So they plead not guilty, which again, it's a right that everybody accused of a crime has. And then it gets, that's now our office gets involved. So it gets set for a status conference. We will show up with the charged offender. We'll talk about it and we'll hear their side of the story. Everyone here can appreciate there's always another side that we typically hear. By that point, we have, Nick was talking about body cam. We typically have the investigative case file at this juncture. So we have body cam with the interactions. We have any witness statements. We have police reports. We have, of course, a copy of the citation. If they decide to plead guilty at that point, at that status conference, then they may certainly do so. But again, with a lot of these offenses, they say, no, I'm not pleading guilty. The other person is being unreasonable, whatever the excuse may be, and then we set it for trial. Now, this is really where, and I think this is kind of what Sally was getting at, is what does the citizen, what is that citizen's kind of future involvement moving forward? So what you can expect is a subpoena from our office. So if we get a trial date down the road, we will give you a subpoena to show up to court. On there's what's called a pretrial conference date. Now the subpoena itself, the court order is a mandatory court order to go to court. The pretrial conference is really important because that's an opportunity for you to speak with our prosecutor on the case. And at that point, we're able to answer your questions. You're saying, hey, what can I expect? What does this look like? Why do I have to show up? What do you need from me? All those sorts of things. And we'll talk through all of those things with you. The other important thing is it allows us to understand what is the full story and really full backdrop of why this noise complaint was made in the first place. So a lot of times it's, hey, my neighbor, the person down the street, the person on the other street is playing music real loud, in all hours of the night. Well, okay, if you go back to that willful malicious conduct, right? Think about that happens one time. And you call up your neighbor and you say, hey, it's 2 a.m, knock it off. And they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I got kind of sidetracked, and they shut it off again. Number one, if that is your only interaction, you very well may not be, even calling the sheriff's department. But if you do, think about that willfulness, that malicious, do they have that intent to annoy, vex, injure, you? That's going to be difficult. What we find typically on noise complaints is it's not a one-time thing. You don't call them up and they say, oh, geez, I'm so sorry about that. My mistake. We learned that there's been 5, 10, 15, 20 times in these instances where you have called up the individual, you have asked them nicely to turn down the music or whatever the issue is. They tell you to pound sand. They sometimes will actually turn it up even louder. Right now, think about that willful, malicious, that intent to annoy, that intent to vex, right? That's some of the evidence that we have. So the sheriff's office or other police agencies will try to get some of that information in the background. But when our prosecutors are trialing with the complaining party, we usually get a little more detail. Sometimes they're like, oh, I also have this video. We, kind of talked about video. Nick was mentioning that Axon link. And, we can ask our sheriff's partner, hey, send so-and-so the Axon link because they have videos of, someone was mentioning fire. The case I'm going to talk about had that as an example, right? I took audio video of this music at 2 a.m. for 5 nights in a row. I recorded X, Y, or Z. Right, we usually get a little more information as we're kind of dialing it in for trial. So if the
offender decides to go to trial, the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt controls. So just because it's a misdemeanor, it's not a lesser burden of proof. The other thing, and I know we're talking about noise complaints, but I've heard just today, I heard, from the other meeting, like the vehicles racing by. One problem that is created by that is identification. So one of the things that we have to prove is identification of who the offender is. So you may call up the sheriff's office and say, hey, it's the same vehicle, the same, ATV, the same whatever it is that is blistering by, lights, sound, boom, 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 all these things. It's ridiculous, trying to curb it. And then the question is, do you know who is the offender of that? And we figured that out. When I say we, starting with the sheriff's office and then ultimately the DA's office, figuring out who that is. And again, admittedly, that's sometimes very, very difficult to do. But if we know who it is, typically, again, the noise complaints that Sally and I were kind of talking about, it's usually like home music, that sort of thing. The proof considerations, how do we establish proof beyond a reasonable doubt? Here's all the things that you can do to assist in that regard. Is audio video is extremely helpful, right? Typically in these types of cases, what we see is we get somebody in there who says, here's all the things that loosely my neighbor has done. And what does the defendant say? No, it's my neighbor who's being unreasonable. It's the complaining party who's making problems. And now the judge is sitting there saying, okay, well, do I have proof beyond a reasonable doubt against the person? So, two people can put fingers like this, audio, video, right? That kind of overcomes that initial thrust. All documentation, we kind of touched on it about if you're submitting things, any documentation from past incidences, we'll take that and we'll look at that. Documented pattern of acts. Again, if it's a one-time thing, right? If I move in next to you and I'm at 2 a.m, I'm playing music loud, you call me up and say, hey, Zach, 2 a.m, knock it off. And I say, oh, geez, I'm so sorry. The time got away and I turned it down. I don't know. I'm guessing you're probably not calling the sheriff's on me. If I do it 5, 6, 8, 10, 20 times, right? That's where it is. And now you're able to get up in court and say, hey, this was not a one-time thing where it was a mistake. This is a documented pattern of acts. This goes to the maliciousness. This goes to the willfulness. Zach has been doing this. And I have asked him, I've sent him emails, I've sent him text messages, please knock it off, please quiet it down, etc. Here's all the attempts I've made to get him to knock it off. And in fact, he turns it up, he keeps it going, whatever that is, right? Now we see how we're building that willfulness, we're building that maliciousness into it. Admissions from the offender, right? Now, a lot of times this will come through the sheriff's office or other police agency, but you make the complaint and they go and talk with the individual, and that person, again, does it happen all the time? Of course not. It says, yeah, I hate that guy. I'm purposely trying to piss him off. I'm playing my music as loud as I can, right? Like it rarely happens because usually they're not going to be that forthcoming, but sometimes we see cases where that is. Again, versus the offender says, oh my gosh, I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never played music past 7 p.m., right? Versus the person says, oh, I let it get away. I'm so sorry. It was one night I turned it down right away. All those different things play into it. And then attempts by the offender to remedy the situation, right? Does the offender text back and say, I'm sorry, I'm working on it? Or does the offender write back to you with expletives and otherwise? All of that can be built into that beyond a reasonable doubt. There is a reasonableness component. There's nothing in the statute that says, 7 p.m., 7 a.m. is quiet hours. Again, there's nothing that concrete. But, there's been complaints before of noise complaints where there's a business across the street that's running a licensed business, right? During the daytime hours, that's going to be a far cry from someone blasting their music night after night after night after 3, 4, 5 sort of thing. So those are all the things that can happen because the question that I heard at the May meeting was, why does the citizen have to continue to be involved? Well, if you think about that malice and that willfulness element, when the deputy responds, the deputy might hear music, right? But that's a one-time thing. That's what they're hearing. It's not disturbing the peace of that individual. It's disturbing your peace. So we have to call you as a witness. That gets back to the confrontation rights I was talking about. That gets back to the hearsay thing. So typically, yes, you're signing your name on the complaint. On the police report, it's going to have your name
probably gonna have your address. Frankly, your neighbor probably knows where you live anyway. And so there was a question, something along the lines of, well, I'm concerned of, I can't remember what the exact phrase was.
Retaliation.
Yep. So we get that all the time. Like I said, because it's a criminal offense, that is, we have to put up the witnesses to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that case. So that requires the person to come in, just like any murder case we have, any sex assault case we have, any burglary case we have, we still have to call those people in to testify against the person. That's part of the way the criminal justice system is built. I do have, we have a lot of examples, but one example that I reached out to our team that handles these cases. I said, hey, just give me something recent. Was I believe in the broader North Valleys area, was an individual. Now again, the deputy gets called out for a noise complaint, shows up, deputy says, hey, I hear music from half a block away. I drive up, there's a person in the driveway drinking a beer, playing music loud. Now, interestingly enough, it was at 6 p.m. So it wasn't even middle of the night, but it was winter hours, so it was kind of dark outside. So again, there's not like a time, limit sort of thing. You don't get to be a total jerk at noon, right? Just because. So 6 p.m. Issues a citation for disturbing the peace. Now, if I put up that deputy, tell me what happened. Well, I showed him, I heard music half block away, and I walk up, I give a guy a cite. We lose that case because there's not that willfulness, there's not that malice. When we contacted the victim, the reporting complaining party, they said, hey, we live 2 blocks away. We've heard this night after night after night. We've reached out to the person. Here's the documentation where we've tried to be reasonable and have them shut it down. Somebody was mentioning fire earlier. One night we saw in this like metal trash can, a bonfire burning in their driveway. Right? These are all things now that we're able to present to the judge through evidence to say, well, tell us about what you saw. Tell us about what you heard. What kind of steps did you try to remedy this? Now, when the deputy did get there and said, hey, what's going on? The guy was a complete jerk to the deputy. He was very obstructionist, was not cooperative, not apologetic whatsoever. Again, now we put on the deputy to talk about what his alcoholic demeanor was, what his demeanor to the deputy was he apologetic? Oh, gee, time got away from me. We were able to put all that stuff on, and the court ultimately convicted the individual. Again, breach of peace, technically, speaking. So again, that's kind of a 30,000-foot view of when the sheriff's department will cite an individual when it comes to our office. Why we have to go through some of those steps and why we need your involvement moving forward, and we can't just call, the deputy and say, hey, come over and kind of explain what happened. Hearsay does not allow us to have the deputy say what somebody else says. The confrontation rights at trial require or allow the defendant to have the right to confront her. So hopefully that kind of hit what happens after the fact. Sally, if there's anything specific I missed, you want me to go on? And then, of course,
Good to me.
I'm here as long as there are questions. Yes, sir.
I just have a quick one.
Of course.
Just kind of wondering if there are any checks and balances.
State your name, please.
Mark Sutton, Silver Hills, sorry.
Okay.
I was wondering if there are any kind of checks and balances for the other end of what you had just described of the nuisance caller. Is there a backlog of record if you say have the same caller that's getting you guys to expend a bunch of resources on what might be a little tit for tat with a neighbor that, that part too?
Yeah, so I would say, let Nick chime in. Part of that is that's the investigation, right? So if me and a neighbor are having a back and forth, and if I'm tracking what you're saying, I'm calling every night saying, oh, my neighbor's doing X, Y, or Z. Now, case law says a complaining party can carry the burden of proof. So I can be the only one to testify about, the problems my neighbor is causing, and the law says that could be it. But again, proof beyond a reasonable doubt is the highest burden of the law, right? So typically, Nick and his team are going to try to find, is there anything to corroborate that? Is there anything, because, you know, right, you're gonna go talk to the neighbors and say, no, Zach's being the idiot. Stuff, but if I'm tracking kind of the spirit of your question. So that's the way you're going back to it. Do I have video or audio? Do I have photographs? Do I have text messages or emails or whatever that, hey, look, I've tried everything I can to do this. I'm gonna provide all of that to the sheriff's department. They're gonna take that as part of their investigation. And then if they feel, hey, you know, if they're like, we have no idea what's going on here, they're probably not issuing a citation. But the citizen says, I want that person cited, and here is some supporting documentation, audio, video, whatever it is, admissions, other neighbors who chime in and say, oh, no, Zach's totally right, or Zach's totally wrong. Those are all the things that the sheriff's office, I don't mean to step on your toes, since he's the expert in the investigation. That's the stuff they're gonna look at and determine, is this a crime that's being committed that can be proved beyond a reasonable doubt? Or, like you said, is this, you know, tit for tat for neighbors who just don't like each other, or, you know. But as far as the research thing, I mean, you know, sheriff's office and our office are here to serve members of the community. So it's not a, you know, if there's a problem, I encourage you to contact the sheriff's office, and then if that rises to crime, we have no problem prosecuting. Making, I mean, in that. Yeah, all I would add is, Lieutenant Tone, Sheriff's Office. What I would add is, in terms of the piece of your question, you were asking about tracking.
Yeah.
So one way that we handle that is we keep the same deputies on the same beats until shit's changed. So one person is very familiar with what's going on in neighborhoods and disputes and whatnot. That being said, if a deputy goes to a call, a certain address, whatever it is, well, on the way there, a lot of times the deputy will say, dispatch, can I get priors? And on our MDT, which is the computer, dispatch will start throwing up all the prior calls for service, and we can click on them and look at the complaint, the resolution, and get a better picture of where we're going into before we get there. So that being said, piece of your question, when you're talking about some kind of problem people maybe making false reports or something of that nature, amongst the thousands of calls for service we get, there is tracking, where if the same problems are coming up at specific addresses, they're flagged. And typically, those will go up to a supervisory level. And the sergeant will take a look at it and we'll try to come up with a solution. Be it reaching out to you, the complainant, finding out what the problem is. And if need be, for instance, if somebody's calling on 911 repeatedly to report non-emergencies, that's a crime.
Yeah.
And we'll also talk to them about that. So there's different methods we have, and there is absolute tracking. And you are correct. Sometimes people just, neighbor disputes happen. But these rolling histories, we do track and we have ability to access very quickly. So we are able to look at that to do a appropriate investigation and make the best investigation we can before going to citations or arrests and then taking out the entire package and handing it off to SAC.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, and I got an answer for you, Susan, while I'm standing up. The captain, I asked the captain, and he said the way video works right now is you file the online report, you say you have video, and if you've ever seen our front desk, which they drive around in sheriff's vehicles, but they're not sworn deputies, they will come out and get it from you, or they'll send you a link and they'll collect it.
Well, he's here, I don't know, it's not a noise complaint. Shall I wait till the end of the meeting? I'm going to ask him about my club. And the meetings that we go to at the county.
I'm happy to stick around after the meeting. If it's something totally separate, I'll stick around and get that.
Separate from the.
Oh, sure. Okay, all right. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So, Zach, you mentioned earlier that, you know, if hypotheticals would be moving in as my neighbor and you're blasting music at 2:30 in the morning. What kind of music would that be?
Oh, well, it used to be rock and roll. My wife's got me in country, so it's a mix of, and then my kids are all over, so I don't know. Kids are not, we haven't delved into that.
You can come up my way, you can carry on.
We got country, we got rock, we got Taylor Swift, it's all over the boy.
I call it.
Wish all the questions were.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you, thanks for the opportunity.
So long as you and number 9, go ahead and sit down.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
All right, so we will move on to number 7, report on request for service for previous CAB meetings. So, we, as you can see, we are now at the Stead Airport, the more centralized location. At the previous meetings, we've been talking about getting to a more centralized location. So, if you have any issues with this location, just let us know. Seems like the air conditioning and the location is better. The original location was at the Cold Springs Community Center. So seems to be a little bit more better geolocation. So let's see what else. In addition, at the previous CAB meeting, it was requested that staff from the city of Reno provide a presentation on the potential benefits of zoning changes to a parcel of property in the Horizon Hills neighborhood and the nearby surrounding area. In addition, it was requested that staff from Washoe County provide a presentation on the application process for special use permits to educate citizens of the North Valleys and provide transparency on the policies and procedures related to screening and auditing entities for compliance with the Nevada Secretary of State's business registration requirements. I've spoken with Sally and she's reached out to the city of Reno and is awaiting a response from them. It could be the city of Reno might do a presentation, it could be staff of Washoe County, or it could be both, but it would most likely be a separate meeting. So we're looking at most likely to hear back, have a presentation at the September meeting, and then the following meeting will possibly have another one. Let's see. Do you guys have any questions?
I don't.
No. So, right.
Sounds good.
So we will be moving on to item number 8.
On the Development Neighborhood Hub, so this is a new venue for me as well. And I'm not sure that I can get Zoom back if I go into the hub. So the best way to get into the hub is if you go on to washoecounty.gov. And then you can even look in the search field for neighborhood development. And if you click on there, it will bring up all of the neighborhood developments that's going on. If you over at the side, there's a link up at the top, it'll say something about past developments or past items. Click on that link and you can get to the District 5, and that will tell you everything that's going on with the items if they're not listed on the front page, anything that you've read before. And it's not listed on the front page. If you click into the District 5, it will show you what's going on with those at that time. And I will get to where I can figure out how to use this and not lose our Zoom, and hopefully be able to show you the hub up on the screen next time.
Thanks, Sally. All right, so if you guys have no questions, we'll be moving on to item 9. It's CAB member commissioner announcements, requests, or comments. Commissioner Herman, do you have anything you want to say? No. All right, do either of you, did you want to?
I did want to address something within the county. I know we're supposed to keep it down to a short time, but I probably won't be able to get to you again. Several citizens have a problem with metal detectors. We have had elections and many things that I guess caused the chair of the commission to decide that she needed protection from us going in. Now, I did do a record request and did not really get any ordinances or anything saying that that's valid. However, here's what happened to me. I am a CCW holder, and when I get out of my vehicle, of course, I can't go into the meeting with my gun. I do lock it up in my pickup, but I do not like to leave my clip and the ammo in my pickup with it also. So I have it on me, just the clip. The security guard, Allied Security, grabbed it out of my hand in the lobby and took it. Now, that's not a weapon. I feel like I could have that on me when I go into the meeting. Also, when we go into the meeting, our heads are turned from the door. The commissioners all have bulletproof glass. It's the citizens who are in danger if we're CCW holders going in there and not having any protection. And yes, some of us have been accosted out in the parking lot when we were when we came up complaining about the drag queen story hour and the library of torn books. I was accosted out in the parking lot. Now, if I don't have protection, or if I could have my clip on me, I could get into my locked gun in the car for protection. I was able to talk them down. But I'm asking why I cannot have my clip on my person when I walk through that metal detector. That's not a weapon.
So,
And the Allied Security Guard should never ever take anything out of the citizen's hand. That should be before the sheriff or something like that if they wanted to, but she had no, you know. So what can I do to bring this forward and see what can be resolved about this? I'm finding out that we're spending millions to have that building detected there a year. Taxpayers are paying for that. And the only time when I go to an afternoon meeting, those metal detectors are there. It's only when the chair of the commission is there. So what would you advise me to go forward with this, to ask why?
Well, I will say that we have two divisions of the DA's office.
Okay,
Criminal division, we have a civil division.
okay.
I supervise the criminal. I've only ever done criminal prosecution, criminal law. So what you're asking is tax ordinances, civil, that sort of thing. So I am, full respect, not the person to ask those questions. So what I would encourage you to do is talk with your commissioner, which I would guess, assume that you voiced that concern. And then that will make it up through the proper channels, and the people who have authority to make those decisions will make those decisions.
do you want to put in a request to?
I did one.
No, I'm saying, do you want to put in a request at this meeting to have Washoe County, the DA, to
Okay.
provide these statute ordinances, the authority,
Okay,
and possibly,
That's a good
is
idea.
that what you're?
I just want to add.
So what we'll do, yeah, what we'll
Because
do
I
is,
think it's reasonable that I could carry my clip. It's not a weapon. Then when I go out, there's been 2 times that I've been accosted in that parking lot for a statement that I made inside. And one of them had a drag queen on his or her car and gunned it as they saw me. And so, you know, but I am. If I remove the clip and I have it in another part of my car, then I've got to look at that, unlock that, get to that. And it's just safer. I'm not carrying a weapon.
Okay, well, I think Sally can look into that.
so yeah, what we'll do is, I'll go ahead and take your comments back with me, and then I'm gonna put it through 311. And that's because they're the ones that have the access to all of that stuff. They also, for the public records request, and that's what you're asking for, is a public records request.
Yes, I've done one already, but I probably.
If you would do another one, that would be awesome. And then make sure that you include that you've requested of the commissioner, and that will get expedited up to me.
All right, thank you.
And so, do you have anything you want to, no, okay, so I have 2 things I would like to, I guess, announce or comment, requests. And first thing, it was brought to my attention by Sally that the November meeting for the North Valley's Academy is on November 10th. And the day afterwards is Veterans Day. And do you guys still, would you like to still have the meeting, or do you want to cancel it on that Monday? I'm fine with either way. It's just, and if anybody has any input on that, that would be helpful too. So,
I didn't think it's up to the citizens.
okay.
Can I get a raise of hands? Okay. Oh, fine.
This is comments from you.
And we can also.
We can, this is something that, with it being brought up, we have a couple more meetings before it comes up. So they've heard about it. They can bring up their decisions during public comment.
Okay, so.
And they also have public comment next. So.
Okay, yeah, so if you guys, definitely let us know what you want and we will, try to make it happen. So then the other thing I would like to bring up is a comment announcement request. I want to bring to your attention an incident that occurred on July 16th within just 48 hours of our last CAB meeting. That day, as I stood in my kitchen talking to my wife, I suddenly felt an overwhelming urge to turn around and look out the window. What I saw was alarming. A brush fire had ignited right on the shoulder of the road near our home and was spreading fast. Without hesitation, my wife and I rushed outside. She grabbed the garden hose while I used the bath towel to beat and smother the flames. Thanks to quick action, and I believe divine timing, we were able to contain the fire by the time the fire department arrived. The winds were strong that day. If I hadn't looked out the window when I did, just a minute after the fire started, it could have easily reached our propane tank. If that had happened, I wouldn't be standing here today. My wife and I are alive because of what I can only describe as a miracle gifted by God. And in light of this, I'd like to propose a discussion at our next meeting about opening each CAB meeting with an invocation. Fires in the North Valley, whether accidental or not, seem to be happening with troubling frequency. We face both tangible, worldly dangers, and I believe deeper, more spiritual threats that seek to harm our community. This is a time for unity, vigilance, and reflection. If you ever see someone fighting a fire, do not assume help is already on the way. Do not drive by. Lend your aid however you can. Even calling 911 can make a difference. Your actions matter. You're part of the community. You're valued and you're needed. Evil often drives only to turn a blind eye. Only through constant vigilance, both practical and spiritual, can we protect our homes, our families, and our neighbors. Let us not wait for the next close call to come together. Let us stand watch now. So I'd like to see about possibly having doing a discussion for invitations.
Okay, we can put that on to discuss.
And all right, that is item 9. So then we're moving on to item 10, general public comment. And did anybody have public comment they would like?
I got a possible answer for you, Sue, on the ammunition in your clip.
Could you state your name?
Teen Shower, Logan Valley. So you can actually buy guns that are made purely of plastic that would not be detectable in a metal detector. So if they search you, they can find it, but it will not be detected in a metal detector.
Right, but,
Look it up.
right.
I think it's funny, I'm serious. Blocks are largely made of plastic.
The clip isn't listed as something that you can't carry into the
Yeah,
community.
see,
And
she's a big-
We're talking about going in and there's a sign and it wasn't on there, and a clip is not a weapon.
No, that's what she said.
Well, like I said, somebody could possibly be carrying a gun that's made of plastic.
Right.
That's.
So, I mean, you want to laugh about it.
But there's a sign outside, there's a sign outside and it lists no gun.
Okay, I just want to say, don't want you guys doing a back and forth.
Sorry.
So just, you're good. Okay, well, thank you so much for turn and the public comment. Is there anybody else that has a comment they would like to provide?
That's wholly remote.
Alright, and so with that, we will be moving on to item 11, adjournment. I would like to make a motion to adjourn. Alright, meeting's adjourned. Room